"Just wait here, Mom. We'll be right back." Jordan said, his voice light, like nothing was wrong. His friends were already chuckling. He said he was too tired to walk in. I didn't mind. It was just a quick step inside to grab it from the cooler. I even wiped the condensation off the can before turning back toward them. But the truck wasn't there. I stepped forward thinking maybe they'd just moved it around the other side. My eyes scanned the wide stretch of cracked pavement, but all I saw was dust swirling in the wind. No sign of taillights, no engine hum, just silence and sun. My stomach dropped. I walked in a slow circle, confused, almost embarrassed. Was this part of some joke Brad and Chase were always filming ridiculous videos? Maybe this was another one. I glanced up expecting to hear laughter or see a camera pointed at me. Nothing. I reached for my phone instinctively, but my purse, it was still in the truck. Along with my wallet, my charger, my ID, everything. My fingers curled slightly empty in the air. I waited. First 5 minutes, then 10. I told myself they were turning around or maybe just messing with me. It wouldn't be the first time. But this felt different. Meaner. The gas station behind me looked like it hadn't seen a good mop in years. One pump, a vending machine with faded labels, a cracked bench under a crooked sign that said, "Open." The clerk inside hadn't even looked up when I paid. Now I was outside again, on the edge of nowhere, the sun pressing down like a weight. I sat on the curb because I didn't know what else to do. My mouth was dry. My hands shook a little. Every few minutes I stood hoping to see headlights, but the road stayed empty. And the laughter never came back. An hour passed, maybe more. The heat made time slippery. I had stopped checking the sun's position and started counting the number of cars that didn't stop 12 by then. I stood up every time I heard an engine, and every time it wasn't them. Then a minivan pulled in the air conditioning, humming loud enough to hear before the tires stopped. A woman got out with 2 toddlers squabbling in the back seat. I stepped toward her, hands out a little, trying not to scare her. "I'm sorry, do you have a phone I could borrow?" Just one quick call. She hesitated, then handed me hers. Her eyes scanned me, dusty, sweat-streaked, trembling. But she didn't ask questions. I dialed Jordan's number. My fingers shook, but I pressed the green button. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey," he said casually. "Where are you?" My voice cracked. "You left me here with nothing." He laughed. "Relax, Mom. It's just a joke. We'll swing back soon." There was more laughter in the background. Brad or Chase? I couldn't tell. My mouth went dry. "This isn't funny," I said, quieter now. "We're just messing with you," he said, still smiling through the phone. "Chill. We'll be back." But they didn't come back. I waited another hour. The woman stayed for a little while, gave her kids juice boxes. Glanced at me a few times, maybe wondering if she should offer more. I didn't know how to ask. Eventually, she drove off, and I was alone again. I kept replaying Jordan's voice in my head. How easy it was for him to laugh while I stood on burning concrete with no money, no ID, and no way to call anyone else. That phone was gone now, driving north in a minivan with 2 toddlers. I didn't even know the woman's name. The gas station clerk came out once, smoked a cigarette, and nodded like this kind of thing happened all the time. I didn't bother asking for help. It hit me then, not just the fear, but something worse. They weren't coming. Not because they forgot, but because they didn't care. Her name was Marcy. She pulled up beside the pump like she'd done it 100 times, opened the back to wrestle with a car seat, and then noticed me. I must have looked pitiful, sitting on the curb with my hands on my knees, trying not to cry in public. "You okay?" she asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. A few minutes later, while her kids sipped juice and kicked the seats, she walked over and asked if I needed help. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. She didn't flinch, just listened. "I can take you as far as Clearwater," she said. "It's not much, but it's something. It was more than something. It was everything." She drove for hours, soft music playing, the windows cracked open. I sat quietly holding the paper cup of water she'd given me like it was fragile. At some point, she passed me a plastic bag of snacks and a folded $20 bill. "Just in case," she whispered. "People forget what it feels like to be stranded." At the Clearwater bus terminal, I thanked her. She gave my hand a squeeze and said nothing else. I sat on a hard bench under a flickering light, clutching that $10 bill like it was a fortune. Then I remembered one name, Aunt Raylene. We hadn't spoken since Mom passed. Life had gotten loud, complicated. But I remembered her voice, warm, no nonsense. I remembered the way she used to hum while cooking her porch full of wind chimes. I asked the man behind the desk if I could borrow the station phone. He handed it over without a word. I dialed slowly, not even sure if the number still worked. "Hello?" My throat tightened. "It's me. June." Silence. Then June. "Oh, honey. Are you okay? Can I stay with you a while?" Her reply came without hesitation. "Of course. Always." I wrote her address on the back of a ticket stub. The last bus left in 20 minutes. I bought a one-way seat with the little money I had and boarded in silence, watching the road disappear behind me. The air in Oregon was cooler than I remembered, crisp and damp, carrying the scent of pine and sea salt. When the bus pulled into the small depot, I half expected no one to be there. But Aunt Raylene stood waiting, arms folded, that same faded green jacket zipped to her chin. She didn't cry. She didn't gasp or overwhelm me with questions. She just opened the truck door and said, "Let's get you inside." Her house hadn't changed. Same chipped paint, same creaky steps. Inside, it smelled like black coffee and old wood. Familiar. Steady. She made me a plate of eggs, slid over a towel, and while I was eating, she set a small slip of paper beside my cup. On it, in her careful handwriting, Odessa Halley. I looked up. She gave me a small nod. "Use your mother's name now," she said. "You don't owe anyone the old one." The next morning, she walked me down to the diner on Maple Street. It sat at the edge of town, one of those places where the booths are always a little sticky and the windows always fogged. The owner, a woman named Jean, barely glanced up when I introduced myself. "You can take the morning shifts. You'll pour coffee, wipe tables. That all right?" I nodded. She handed me a plastic badge. I clipped it on without reading it at first, but later behind the counter I looked down. Odessa Halley. I said it aloud once under my breath. Odessa. A name I hadn't heard since Mom's funeral. It didn't feel like running away. It felt like deciding who I wanted to be. The regulars didn't ask questions. Jean didn't care about my past. I showed up, I worked, I went home. At night, Aunt Raylene and I sat on the porch. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't, but she always left the porch light on until I was in bed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dream of being left behind. I dreamed of staying. It was a slow Tuesday. Only 2 booths were filled, one by a retired couple sipping black coffee, the other by a fisherman who always asked for extra napkins but never tipped. The air smelled of bacon grease and bleach. I was restocking the sugar caddies when the bell over the door jingled louder than usual. Then came the man. He didn't walk in, he stumbled, clinging to the doorframe, like gravity had changed its rules. His shirt was soaked in blood, his face pale, scraped. His eyes scanned the room wildly. "Help," he croaked. And then he collapsed. Time went still. Mrs. Carter dropped her dishcloth and ran for the phone. I was already on my knees pressing a towel. God, anything against the bleeding on his side. His chest heaved beneath my hands. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Help is coming. Just stay." He looked up at me, unfocused. Then his fingers curled around mine. "Thank you," he breathed. That was all. The EMTs arrived fast. bustling through the narrow doorway with a stretcher and clipped voices. They worked quickly, efficiently. I kept holding his hand until they lifted him. "Name one of them," asked. The man stirred. "Grant." That's all he gave. No last name. No story. They wheeled him out. The bell above the door jingled again, soft this time. Afterward, I stood at the sink, scrubbing my hands harder than necessary. Blood still under my nails. My heart beat slower now, but my mind hadn't caught up. Mrs. Carter patted my shoulder. "You did good, Odessa." I nodded, but said nothing. The day resumed, almost like nothing had happened. Coffee poured, eggs sizzled. The fisherman asked for more napkins, but I couldn't stop thinking about him, about Grant, about how fast everything can shift. One moment you're restocking sugar packets. The next you're staring into the eyes of a man bleeding on the floor. And somehow, deep in my chest, something told me that wouldn't be the last time our paths crossed. He came back 3 days later. His arm was in a sling, his lips stitched, and he moved like someone still dodging punches. But he smiled when he saw me. Not wide, just enough. A flicker of warmth in a face that had known too much pain. "I figured coffee's safer here than on the street," he said, easing himself into the corner booth. I poured him a cup. Black. No cream. No sugar. He didn't ask for anything else. After that, he just kept coming. Some days he read the paper. Some days he stared out the window, lost in thoughts he never voiced. And slowly he bled into my routine, like he'd always been there. Like the bell above the door was made just for him. When the leaves started falling, he helped Aunt Raylene fix the loose porch railing. Then he cleared the gutters without being asked. He brought in her groceries, fixed the kitchen drawer that always stuck, and installed a light above the porch that didn't flicker like the old one had. "He's quiet," Raylene said one evening, watching him from the window. But the right kind of quiet. I knew what she meant. The first time I found him waiting outside in the rain, I almost scolded him. But there was something in his face like he'd been walking with a storm inside long before the one overhead arrived. "I used to be a cop," he said, without turning. "Big city, narcotics." I didn't interrupt. He let the rain fall a moment longer before finishing. "I got too close to something I shouldn't have. My partner was dirty. Set me up, shot me, left me. They buried the truth, said I was unstable. I lost everything. Still, I didn't ask more. I just brought him tea and sat beside him. That night, he slept on the couch. Didn't ask. Didn't assume. Just folded the blanket neatly in the morning and thanked us both before heading out. And that porch light he installed, he always made sure it stayed on. The knock came on a Monday. I'd just taken the trash out and was wiping my hands on a dish towel when I heard it 3 short raps. Nothing urgent. Nothing loud. Just enough to stop my breath. I opened the door and the world spun sideways. Jordan. His hair was longer now and thinner at the temples. He looked older, smaller somehow. Not physically, but emptied. Worn down like something life had scraped raw. "Mom?" He said, his voice barely more than breath. Behind me, I felt Grant step forward. He didn't touch me, didn't speak right away. He simply stood beside me, solid and steady. "Who are you?" he asked. Jordan looked up at him, startled. Then his eyes darted to mine, searching. "I'm her son." The words landed hard. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just said what needed to be said. "No," I replied, my voice even. "You were." Silence stretched between us like the miles he once left me behind. Jordan's shoulders sagged. His eyes flicked to Grant again. "I've been looking for you," he said. "Ever since the podcast." What podcast, I asked, but I already knew. My friends, he said, shame cutting through every word. They told the story about the gas station, called it the best prank of their lives. It went viral. Grant's hands curled into fists at his sides, but he didn't move. They laughed, Jordan continued, but people online didn't. They were furious. I didn't even know they were going to share it. When I saw the video, he trailed off. I didn't let him finish. I don't care what changed your mind, Jordan. You made your choice. I made mine. His lips trembled. Can we talk? Behind me, the kettle whistled. Grant didn't speak, but his presence spoke for him. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. We sat in silence for a long while. Jordan kept his hands, folded his eyes, flicking up at me and back down to the porch boards. He looked like a kid again. Not the boy I raised, but the boy who used to hide his report cards behind the TV. They told it like it was a joke, he finally said. Brad and Chase, on their podcast. They laughed about it, about leaving you there. I didn't say a word. I wanted him to sit in it. But it went viral, he continued. People were furious. The comments they tore into them, into me too, once they figured out who I was. I looked at him for the first time since we sat down. And that's when you cared. He winced. No. I mean, yes, but not because of that. When I saw it, I remembered your face. When we drove off. I remembered the look you gave me right before you turned back toward the door. And then I didn't see you again. You weren't supposed to, I said quietly. I left them, he said. I walked away from all of it. I've changed, Mom. I really have. I nodded slowly. Maybe you have. But I need you to understand something. He looked up. I didn't leave because of the prank, I said. I didn't disappear because of one cruel joke. I left because it revealed the truth. What truth? That I never really mattered. Not to any of you. Not enough for you to come back. Not enough for anyone to notice I was gone. His breath hitched. I waited an hour before I borrowed that phone. I continued. When I called you, you laughed. You said it was a joke. You said you'd swing back. I thought you were mad I cut in. But I wasn't waiting. That moment told me everything I needed to know. He said nothing after that. Just sat there, eyes, damp shoulders, hunched, the air heavy between us. The porch light flickered on as dusk settled in. Inside, I heard Grant's voice calling my name. The courthouse smelled like dust and stale coffee. I sat on the wooden bench, back straight, hands folded in my lap, waiting for my name to be called. Brad and Chase sat at the defense table in matching gray suits that couldn't hide the twitch in their knees. They looked smaller now. Not physically, but the kind of small that comes from being seen for what you really are. Their latest prank had gone too far. A woman had a seizure after they rigged her office with fake eviction papers and collapsing furniture. They filmed the whole thing, laughed, posted it, until the backlash came and then the lawsuit. The lawyer asked me to speak about the gas station incident. I did. I told the court what they didn't see in the viral clip. The sunburn on my neck from waiting in the heat. The way my heart hammered when my phone buzzed only to read, "Relax, we'll come back soon." The silence that followed. The hours. The fear. The moment I stopped waiting. The courtroom was quiet when I finished. Brad wouldn't look at me. Chase shifted in his seat. Their smirks were gone. I stepped down from the stand and walked through the double doors. Outside, the press was already gathered, mics, raised cameras flashing. Odessa. Over here, Miss Hallie, can we ask? I kept walking. And then I saw him, Jordan, standing behind the crowd. Not moving, not calling out. Just watching. He stood apart, dressed in dark jeans and a windbreaker, looking older than I remembered. Our eyes met for a moment. I felt a flicker of something, memory ache, I don't know. But I didn't stop. I walked past him without a word. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Because I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to be heard. I didn't look back as Grant opened the car door for me. Steady and quiet, like always. That night, Grant made me coffee. He always used just the right amount of cream without asking. He handed me the mug like it was a ritual. Steady hands, quiet eyes. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded and sat beside him on the porch swing. I am now. The courthouse was behind me. The cameras, the questions, the years I spent trying to understand what I did wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. I just hadn't been seen, not by the people I had trusted the most. I leaned against Grant's shoulder. "He still thinks it was the prank that ended us," I said. Grant didn't speak. He never interrupted. "He doesn't see what came before," I added. "All the little things, the dismissals, the way I became invisible unless I was useful, the laughter that was always aimed at me, never with me. The mug warmed my hands, but it was Grant's presence that settled my chest. He still doesn't understand that leaving me there didn't break me," I said. "It freed me. It made space for this, for you." He turned his hand over palm up, and I laced my fingers into his. "He doesn't know what I built," after I whispered. Aunt Raylene's old porch light flickered softly overhead. The ocean stretched out beyond the fence, dark and calm. The sound of the tide rolling in filled the silence between us. I had waited for someone to come back for me once, and no one did. This time I hadn't waited. I had walked away and found something better than being rescued. I found someone who didn't need to be the center of everything. Someone who just stayed. Grant kissed the side of my head. "You're not invisible here," he said. "I know." I sipped my coffee. The tide whispered back and forth like a promise, and the porch light stayed on behind us. Tomorrow, the papers would run headlines, people would talk, the video would resurface again. But none of that would matter. Because this time, I was already home.